I will be showing you how to make this beautiful maternity evening dress, perfect for baby showers, maternity photo shoots, etc. You're welcome to Kema Freak. My name is Kemi Omorugbe. Please enjoy the video. Let's start by taking body measurement. This will be slightly different from what you are used to because of the bump, of course, and it is very important that you take this accurately. For the vertical measurement, take the bust point measurement right there and write it down. Extend your tape under the bust without moving it from the bust point. Then you write down your value. Next, take the measurement of your natural waist, write it down, and without moving your tape from that natural waist, take under the bump, okay, just below the bump right there. I skip the part here, which is your bump line. Now that's the highest point of the bump. Write whatever value you have around there down. And if you're taking your body measurement by yourself, listen to this, don't move your tape, just let your tape follow your body. That way till you get to your lap, then you are free to bend your head like so to take your nail line and the full length of the dress. Next, we'll be taking the horizontal measurement. Start with your shoulder width and then you move on to the bust circumference depending on how fitted you want this outfit to be. Go ahead and write down your value. Next, you're going to take your tape round the under bust. Basically, you're taking the measurement for all the vertical measurements, you're taking horizontal measurement for them. Then take round your natural waist, okay, where you will usually take your half length. You understand what I mean? Then place your tape round the bump, the highest point of the bump, to take your bump circumference right there. Now go below the bump and take the under bump circumference. Then extend your tape to the hip. Next, you'll be taking the bust span, which is the distance between one nipple to the other. Now let's move on to the pattern. I'll be starting with my top margin, this margin right here, just to make my work neat. From the margin, mark out all the vertical measurement you just took, which is the bust line, the under bust line, the waist line, the bump line, under bump line, the hip line, and then the knee line and your hem. After marking out all these measurements, you are going to rule out these lines horizontally. Once again, you took your vertical measurement and ruled horizontal lines on them. You may want to take this in multiple places so that your lines will be straight, but if you have a pattern master like mine, you can just place it at the edge of the paper to get your straight lines. Note that the pattern I'm creating right here is the front pattern, the pattern for the front piece of this dress. So now I am ruling out my lines. This is the bust line, okay, and this is actually the waist line, not the under bust line. I corrected this eventually on the pattern. And this right here is the bump line. The hip line, I ended up not using the under bump line. Now at the top margin, I'll be measuring out the shoulder. So I took the shoulder width divided by 2 because I'm dealing with half of the pattern. I'll be slanting this shoulder by 1.5 inch. Now go ahead and take the neck width as well, which is 3.5 inches for mine, and I slanted my shoulder like so. Then I am marking out the armhole line. From the top, I just added 1 inch to the value I took out for my shoulder width right there, and I marked my shoulder width again at this point just to give me the measurement for my armhole. You may want to check out the detailed tutorial on how to draft a basic bodice pattern to fully understand the step-by-step process for creating a pattern first before coming on here. Next, measure the armhole line right there and mark the center. Then you're going to slope the armhole line by 0.75 inch to create this curve right here. So here I told you I corrected this. I am marking out my under bust line like so, and I'm taking out all the horizontal measurements, which are my circumferences divided by 4. Okay, so you take the bust circumference divided by 4 and mark it, then the waist circumference divided by 4, mark it on the half length line, that's the waistline right there. Then that bum circumference divided by 4, the hip circumference divided by 4, you mark it on the hip line. And here I'm marking out my knee line. So for the knee line, I just took out 2 inches from what I measured out on the hip line, and I marked that value on the knee line and on the hem of this pattern. This marking is just to help me maintain a straight line from the knee to the hem. Next, take the measurements of the shoulder line and mark the middle. Then move on to the bust line and mark half of the bust span. Take the same measurements along the bump line, along the knee line, because we are just going to be connecting this line all the way down on a straight line. Once you're done with all the markings, go ahead and draw your dart line, which is connecting the bust point to the hip line and to the hem all the way down. Now remember the marking we took on the shoulder line, we are going to connect that to the bust line like so. Next, we are going to be taking the measurement for the dart. I took 1 inch towards the center front and 1.5 inch towards the side, so our dart is 2.5 inches wide. And right here I'm just using my curve to create the curve for the bust cup right there. Now because our dart is 2.5 inches wide, I have to replace that measurement at the side on my bust line like so. So I continued my measurements all the way down, taking 1 inch towards the center front and 1.5 inch towards the side of the pattern, because we are going to extend our dart to the hem. Okay, just watch this. This right here represents our darts, which are going to be cutting off the pattern or closing up. Now just the same way I replace my 2.5 inches on the bust, the under bust line, sorry, I'm going to continue replacing it because we are taking out 2.5 inches wide dart, right? Once that is done, I can then connect the sides of this pattern. Don't mind the shape, okay? You know, this is for a pregnant person so the shape may be weird, but as long as you're sure of your measurements, don't worry about it. Just continue taking your marking along the side. So this is what we have right here. Now go ahead and take the measurement for the bust dart. I took a 2 inches wide bust dart right there. Next, decide on how deep you want your neckline to be and just mark a half an inch horizontal line right there. That's because of the style we are going for. It's a v neckline, but it's not a sharp v neckline. Okay, are you seeing what I'm trying to create right there? Yeah, but you can decide to work with any neckline of your choice. So from this point, I'm connecting and creating the shape of my bust right there, and I'll be adjusting this neckline a little bit because it is sleeveless. I don't want the shoulder to get to the edge, so I took out about 1 inch from the natural shoulder line right there, and here I am completing the shape of my bust cup. So I just closed up the bust dart so that I can properly create my bust cup right there. You can temporarily tape it if it's going to distract you in any way. Along the chest line, I marked 1 inch inward, and I'll be connecting that to the under bust line to properly create my bust cups. You can see how it looks once the dart is open. So I will be closing up this dart, so don't worry about it. Here I'm just, reshaping the armhole curve right there, and I'll go ahead now to cut out the cups of this dress. After cutting out the patterns for the bust cup, go ahead and label them, then cut off the dart on the rest of the pattern. Close it up like so, and tape together. But I'm going to be leaving from the knee downward because we're going to end up splitting and spreading that part to create a mermaid pattern. Now to do that, along the nail line, go ahead and separate this pattern. Don't cut it all the way, okay? Just do the same thing I'm basically doing right here. Now we are moving on to the pattern for the back piece, and as you see, again, I am drawing my margin. For the back piece, we are going to have the bodies separately and the skirt separately. So here I am marking the width of the neckline and the width of the shoulder. Now the neckline depth for the back is just 1 inch, and I went ahead to mark 3.5 inches for the width of the neckline. Now after taking the measurement for the shoulder line, I slanted it by 1 inch, and here I am taking the back half length. Be sure to make use of your own measurement. And after marking the waistline for the back right there, I will be creating the armhole line for the back like we did for the front, marking the same value down and towards the side to create a perpendicular line, a 90-degree line right here, on which we are going to mark out the curve for the armhole. So along the middle, the center of this line, mark half an inch inward to guide you in creating the armhole curve for the back right there. Once again, please refer to the pattern on Basic Bodice block creation to fully understand this. So here I have marked the measurement, the bust circumference divided by 4. I marked it along the chest line, and the waist circumference divided by 4 plus an extra 1 inch to create the dart for the back right here. So whenever you take out your dart, always remember to replace it. Here we are going to try to eliminate the zip bulge along the back, so I slanted my pattern along the zip allowance by 1 inch. In order not to have a measurement deficit, I added the 1 inch back on the side of the waistline like so. So here I am cutting out the pattern for the back piece. This is pretty straightforward. It's just the regular Basic Bodice block for the back. Once again, like I adjusted the neckline for the front and also the armhole for the front, I am doing the same thing for the back because both the front and the back pattern has to be equal along the shoulder, since we are going to be joining them together at the end of the day. Here is my pattern fully done. Now we are moving on to the pattern for the skirt of the back piece. Once again, I have my margin, and right here I am drawing my 1 inch wide zipper allowance. Next, go ahead and mark the hip line, the knee line, and the hem, and draw out this line just as we did on the front skirt pattern. Next, I'll be marking out the measurement of my waist circumference divided by 4 plus extra 1 inch for that. And here I am marking out my bump line because I forgot to do that. So I have my bump line right there, which I'll be labeling. Here I will take out the bump circumference divided by 4 on this line and mark it out. And on the hip line we have the hip circumference divided by 4. Then I took out 2 inches from the value I marked for the hip line. That is what I marked on the knee line and on the hem. Go ahead and create your 1 inch wide dart and connect all your markings together to form the side seam of the skirt. We'll be contouring the skirt pattern a little bit as a continuation of the bodies. So remember that 1 inch we took out from the waistline on the bodies. We're also taking out the same 1 inch from the waistline of the skirt, and we are shaping it like so. I connected my slanted line just about 1 inch above the hip line, and from 1 inch below the hip line I connected a slanted line to the knee line like so. So because I took out 1 inch from that point, I added 1 inch back to my waistline and to my knee line like so, and I continued this line towards the hem. Now let's cut out our skirt pattern. Note how I didn't reshape the waistline. That's simply because I didn't do the same thing for the front piece and I don't want any disparity in the measurements. Now at the knee line we are going to be slashing and spreading this pattern to create a mermaid skirt pattern. So I just cut through the bottom half of this pattern and I'll be slashing the knee line towards the edges like so. Unlike the front, we are going to be spreading the 2 sides of this knee line because of course there's a side seam at the center of the back, unlike the front pattern, right? Don't forget to always label your pattern just in case it splits through. You can replace it on your pattern. Now we'll be transferring our patterns to fabric right here. This is the front pattern and you can't split the center front, so I only spread this pattern by about 14 inches thereabouts. Yeah, 15 inches. So after spreading, measure this side of your skirt pattern and take it towards the center front. You're going to note that the length increases, so you're then going to connect your line at so. This is to make the hem of your dress look rounded, like rather than shapeless and flat. Okay, now I have a full pattern drafting tutorial on how to create a mermaid or a 6 pieces pattern. You may want to check that out. It's going to give you a very detailed explanation on how to spread and create your mermaid pattern properly. So here we have this. After transferring my pattern to fabric, I decided to cut through the waistline of the front pattern right here. Just what I'm doing, this is to create a facing because I am not planning to use lining for this, and we don't want our seam lines and seam allowances exposed. So this is a necessary step if you won't be using lining to cover up your seam allowances. Here is the back skirt pattern right here, and once again I'll be spreading. At this point I realized my fabric wasn't as wide as I thought it was, so I reduced the spreading a little bit. I didn't take out 15 inches from the center. So I first marked the center of that pattern, then I spread about 12 inches to the left, another 12 inches to the right, and because I wanted to create a goddess, I increased the length of the center back, okay, because I wanted that mermaid finishing that looks like you attached the goddess when you didn't. Okay, so that's why I increased the length like so. Then I went ahead to cut out my pattern on fabric. Note how I am not adding seam allowances to this fabric. That's because the fabric is very stretchy. If you even want it more fitted, you can actually reduce the size, okay? But I didn't, okay, because I didn't really want it very tightly fitted. But you can look into doing that, because I think I should have on a second thought. So, but along the waistline, you still have to add your seam allowances. It's just at the side you don't need seam allowances, okay? Every other part needs your seam allowance. So along the neckline, the armhole, you need to add your seam allowances. Now here is the back bodice cut out on fabric. I went ahead to also cut out a facing for the back. Like I said earlier on, I am not attaching lining to this piece at all. So because I don't want to start piping my neck and my armhole, I needed to make my facing below the armhole, like so. You're going to see how I sew this in the sewing tutorial. Here I am transferring the pattern to fabric for the cups. I went ahead to add my seam allowances around the cup. You need to do that. It is only on the side seam, you don't need seam allowances. So right here I transferred the seam to another fabric which was acting as the lining. You can also make use of the same fabric, but yeah, I made use of a stretchy lining for the cup of this dress. We are done transferring all our patterns to fabric, and this is what we have. In the next video, I'll be showing you how to sew these pieces together to achieve your lovely mermaid maternity dress. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.